going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to the 12 Steps on the Path to Freedom, All Fellowships, Big Book Study Workshop. My name is Lisa, and I'm excited that you are here tonight. I am an avid student of the 12 Steps now for decades, and my focus has been Alateen, Al-Anon, ACA, CODA, Naranon, and so many others. I don't mind what kind of meeting I go to sometimes, as long as it's a meeting, because it's about the 12 steps. So please join me in the set aside prayer with the intention of opening our minds to new experiences. God, please set
Please set
aside
aside
everything
everything
I
I
think I
think I
know
know
about
about
myself,
this
this disease,
disease,
the
the
12
12
steps,
steps, and
and especially
especially
you,
you,
so
so
I
I
may
may
have
have
an
an
open
open
mind
mind
and
and a
new
new
experience
experience
with all
with
these
all
things.
these things. Please
Please help me to see my
see my
truth.
truth.
Well, here we are, the final part of our journey along this particular path. And we will likely make this journey over and over again versus taking the repetitive journey of using our addictions over and over again. So that's some good news. And Bill and others use the rocket launch metaphor and the symbolism of an orbiting around the source of the light. The signs in the big book are very, very clear. It's really not suitable at all. It says that in step one, we are powerless over our addiction, but even more importantly, we are powerless over our lives. I can't stress this enough, and it deserves a lot of emphasizing because most of us don't really understand it. I can't stress this enough, and it deserves a bunch of emphasizing because most of us don't really understand that people haven't experienced unmanageability the way that we have come to understand it. Keep that in the back of your mind that the I can't talk tonight. Bedevilments are those behaviors that stem from our selfishness and our self-centeredness. The big book says that we enter the world of the spirit at the completion of the ninth step, and then continues on to say that we are placed in a position of neutrality in regards to our addictions. But it also says that this is subtle and we are not cured of our unmanageability. Bill doesn't actually say why, but we can deduce that was his intent. We can try praying, meditating, having a sponsor, living on principles, helping others, but we still won't be able to do this journey alone. Because we are human, our free will hijack us unless we plug into the power. To the extent that we are plugged into that power, our life will flourish. If we choose not to plug in, we will continue to flounder and wander aimlessly. So the real question is your current life, not the addiction parts, because if you're still struggling with that, just hang in there. This is why we are all here, to hopefully find the freedom together through guidance, experience, and hope. We are powerless. Actually, we have no power, no choice. It's pretty straightforward. When we look at addiction, and most everyone gets it in some way or another, and that is their experience, and it needs embracing. Very few people at this stage of the game in the workshop have any resistance to the subversiveness of this addiction. We have discovered we are holding the change, clutching the prison bars, waving them in front of others' faces, so we remain in self-centeredness. That's the epitome of self-centeredness, which is also the default position of my free will, to always choose me. On my own power, I am always going to side with my self-will, especially when I'm not plugged into the power. I won't know that I will have some reason or some feeling or excuse of rationalization until it's too late. Bill says we enter the world of the spirit. But I wonder, well, where have we been then? Well, we've been in our own fantasy Disneylands. I was in Lisa Land, also known as the Land of Self. The first 9 steps are all about a program of recovery. The next 3 steps, 10, 11, and 12, are the part of the program for living one day at a time in harmony. In steps 1 through 9, we are wallowing in the world of self, that Lisa land, and we are trying to get out of the quicksand, trying to break free by dropping our chains, breaking our locks, removing the ball and chain. Then we're brought over, we're delivered through step 10. The 2 things that make us perfectly human are that we have a mind that thinks and we have a will that decides. The body and the mind are parts of the addiction problem, the allergy, and the obsessions. Our will is the bullseye, the underlying cause and condition. And that will is dysfunctional. It's our source of unmanageability. Then we enter the world of the spirit, and this is a major event for us when we finish step 9. Bill says we are placed in a position of neutrality. On the title page that we looked at months ago, Bill said, "How many thousands of men and women have recovered?" Bill uses recovered in the past tense throughout the whole book, which I know can be really confusing for a lot of people, especially if you didn't do a workshop like this, looking at that, being told you're recovered and not understanding it needs to be addressed, I think. It's pretty interesting. But why does he do that? Well, because when we finish the first 9 steps, we have reached a new place of neutrality. We finished them, meaning completed the amends. No longer are we fighting our powerlessness admittance. There is no resistance, no attraction, just complete neutrality. This is our physical sobriety, but we are not cured. Bill does not define this in the big book very clearly. We are not cured of our unmanageability or from our self-centeredness. These are his words on page 62. He says, we can't even reduce it much by wishing or trying on our own power. So here we are joyfully entering the world of the spirit. And what did Bill mean by this? Well, this milestone represents moving from a selfish, self-centered, lonely existence to a life guided by a power greater than ourselves. This is not a passive stage, but an ongoing lifetime process of growth in understanding and manageability. This new world of spirit is characterized by practicing unconditional love, patience, kindness, honesty, and humility, while also releasing our resentment and fear. It means essentially to live on life's terms, not ours. We accept and we find balance in the relationships with ourselves, with others, and that power that is beyond ourselves. So whenever I'm disturbed, there is something wrong with me. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the little book called Daily Reflections. I got this, what I'm going to read to you out of that little book, Daily Reflections. And it's called a spiritual axiom. It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. I never truly understood the 10th step spiritual axiom until I had the following experience. I was sitting in my bedroom reading into the wee hours when suddenly I heard dogs barking in the backyard. My neighbors frown on this kind of disturbance, so with mixed feelings of anger and shame, as well as fear of my neighbors' disapproval, I immediately called in my dogs. Several weeks later, the exact situation repeated itself, but this time, because I was feeling more at peace with myself, I was able to accept the situation. Dogs will bark, and I calmly called in the dogs. Both incidents taught me that when a person experiences nearly identical events and reacts two different ways, then it is not the event which is of prime importance, but the person's spiritual condition. Feelings come from inside, not from outward circumstances. When my spiritual condition is positive, I react positively. And as I said, that's from the book Daily Reflections. I don't even know if that book is around anymore. They used to send it out like once a month. So this is our way of life. It has led the way for me to walk away from my addictions and to begin to thrive and manage myself in a peaceful, joyful way. The 12 steps information is in fact my way of life, allowing me to live my life more fully than I have ever been able to do before. The tools of this program have given me the freedom I sought for many years. Bill says the promises at the end of the ninth step, in stark contrast of the bedevilments, are the litmus test of unmanageability, and the promises are the litmus test of our spirituality. The darkness versus the light. Bill says, before it even begins, meaning step 10, the promises will always manifest if we work for them. That will then lead us on to step 10, which of course will lead us to step 11 and 12 also. And this is our daily reprieve from not being cured for one day at a time, but when we connect with the power, our lifeline to freedom from suffering, we become empowered. So we clean the channel using our step 10 spot check as we go about our day, and if needed, an additional nightly review, which I can't tell you enough about step 10. If you're doing it on the daily, you'll hardly ever have to do those formal worksheets that we do. Thankfully, Bill became more clear in his 12 and 12 book. He clarified that step 10 was or is a tool that you can use daily. In the big book, the step 10 formula, or as Bill referred to it, the spot check. He says, on the spot, when I am disturbed, I use the 10th step. Not by writing it down. We don't have time or the need to do that. This needs to be done immediately, as soon as we recognize the need to address whatever has just happened. Later that day, we do a meditation and the day's inventory. We ask ourselves some key questions, and there's some good ones in the book for suggested use. But we can simply ask ourselves, how did I behave today? I do a quick review, a couple of minutes will suffice. Then I meditate in order to connect with my higher power, in order to be empowered. In the morning, when I wake up, before I do anything else, in fact, I set my alarm to make sure I have the extra time needed. And I connect, I plug in to begin my day with my higher power. A relationship with life, a relationship with myself, and a relationship with others. Step 10 is normally with 10 and 12, 10 through 12, but in a conversation about relationships, step 10 is the catalyst because usually step 10 is used when we are disturbed. Drop the script. Sobriety is about balance. Physical sobriety means that we have been delivered to a place of neutrality. The balance, emotional sobriety, is about the balance of our emotions. So when we look at the brain stem, the part that sits on the top of our spinal cord, like at the base of your neck, it's like a small button of management of our biology and physiology. We could call it our brain, or it's also been called our lizard brain, which refers to the most primitive part of the human brain, primarily the basal ganglia and brainstem, responsible for primal survival instincts, including fight, flight, freeze, feeding, and reproduction. When we look at the emotions that generate from our instincts, it is the limbic system, and this regulates emotions from memories and controls behaviors crucial for our survival. It functions as the brain's emotional center, linking physical and emotional well-being together. We have the mechanisms of communicating with other people and the mechanism of having emotions, all for our purposes of surviving. And we have looked at the conversion of instincts of fight, flight, and freeze into the emotions of anger, fear, and shame or dishonesty. The real point is that we are human because we have two functions in our cortex, which means we can have knowledge and we can make decisions. And I suppose it isn't hard to imagine, with all of the exposure that you have had to the terminology, as well as from your own experiences, that sometimes our emotions are managing us or our instincts are managing us, especially when we are in addictions, and the result is usually tragic chaos. It is only when our cortex functions that we know better, so we then can do better. Bill was a pioneer in relating to human nature, and he ends step 11 with the words, praying for the knowledge of God's will and the power to carry it out, because we have said consistently that unmanageability is not knowing better. Therefore, we're not able to do better or also knowing better, but not doing any better. Both statements are true, knowing or not knowing. There is a complete divide between what is right or wrong. It's a severed disconnect. The real challenge is to do the right thing, the healthy and correct thing, living a life on principles. Maslow made a career talking about this. His model serves the purpose of understanding the 12 steps because it helps in understanding our human nature. Self-esteem, self-awareness, self-respect, a positive outlook. There is no disagreement that to live a life that flourishes will give us the ability to have successful relationships with people, acceptance, affection, connectivity, community, and then we get to steps 10, 11, and 12. From the physical to the emotional to the social, the 10th step is seen as the development of a conscience, the filter in us that allows us to determine alignment with those principles. We finally become our true selves, and then we become aware of it in our developing consciousness, our intentional pursuit of improving our consciousness. We hear it all the time. Are we human having a spiritual experience, or are we spiritual having a human experience? Having an extensive spiritualist background, I am of the belief that I am both, two sides of one coin. Most people would probably agree. And they come into the program and they begin complying until they have an experience with step 1, and they completely implode and surrender. It's not about compliance. In Dr. Tebow's paper, Surrender versus Compliance, he wrote, one fact must be kept in mind, namely the need to distinguish between submission and surrender. In submission, an individual accepts reality consciously, but not unconsciously. He accepts as a practical fact that he cannot at that moment conquer reality, but lurking in his unconscious is the feeling, there will come a day, which implies no real acceptance and demonstrates conclusively that the struggle is still going on. With submission, which at best is a superficial yielding, tensions continue. When, on the other hand, the ability to accept reality functions on the unconscious level, there is no residual battle and relaxation ensues with freedom from strain and conflict. In fact, it is perfectly possible to ascertain to what extent the acceptance of reality is, on the unconscious level, by the degree of relaxation which develops. The greater the relaxation, the greater is the inner acceptance of reality. Dr. Tebow said, Bill W. got it right. Thibault was one of the first psychiatrists to describe alcoholism as a disease rather than a moral failing or criminal activity. He was also one of the first to wholeheartedly endorse Alcoholics Anonymous as an effective force in the struggle against compulsive drinking. He also wrote some really great papers. If you ever want to Google his name, they'll come up and you can read them. They're really, really well written. But unfortunately, the ego will always return unless the individual learns to accept a disciplined way of life, which means the tendency towards ego comeback is permanently monitored. But we know the ego has an uncanny way of regenerating itself. George Ivanovich Gurdjieff wrote as one of his favorite quotes, "A man will renounce any pleasures you like, but he will not give up his suffering." Awakening is possible only for those who seek it and want it, for those who are ready to struggle with themselves and work on themselves for a very long time and very persistently in order to attain it. He also tells us that we are asleep, not only at night, but in our waking life. And we do not sleep in ordinary sleep, but a deeply hypnotic sleep, completely unaware of what we are, of our own actions, and our motivations. We are here living, moving, thinking, feeling human beings without vividly knowing that we are here. Author, speaker, and fellow AA member Dr. Wayne Dyer admired and echoed Gurdjieff's sentiment in his teachings in broader, profound, and often repeated wisdom regarding waking sleep, stating that most people live, work, and die in a state of deep, hypnotic, unconscious sleep, unaware of their true selves or motivations. Dr. Dyer focused on shifting from deficiency motivation, which is ego-driven, to living from a place of higher consciousness and intention, which is God-driven. So in step 4, especially column 3, we looked at our beliefs. These are the lenses through which we look, and we found they were distorted, but our lenses have a capacity for distortion, a chronic daily capacity for deep illusions. And when our lenses are distorted, our emotions are disturbed. So this is about emotional sobriety, or what I like to call emotional maturity, about dealing with our disturbances, not the particular object of our addictions. It is about life, our relationships with others and ourselves, and effectively managing our lives, all in spite of our distorted lenses. Grief, loss of a job, or even feeling regretful could crop up, and Bill says to watch out for it. We watch for the types of things that we addressed in our step 4 inventory, because this is our roadmap. It tells us a lot about who we are and how we cope or live our lives. And Bill calls this a 10-step personal inventory. And we did, or have at least started, the big kahuna of all inventories. Some people do it once, some people do it multiple times, and others never get through an entire inventory ever. So wherever you're at, you're right where you're supposed to be. I've actually done 3 full formal inventories, and I've also done 2 per year in workshops, but none have been as big as the first one. And I feel pretty free at this point, but events in life will always be unpredictable. So I could do it again, but never like the first time. Self-centeredness is the root of my unmanageability. So I will never be completely free of these pitfalls. It's in my genetic makeup. I can't escape it, but I can work with it. Bill says, watch for these things when they crop up. And he is not saying if, he is saying when. And then he says to take these actions. Pray is the first thing to do because we are powerless. And I am powerless over my instincts as much as I am over my addictions. I have no power at all. So I pray. I connect, and then I listen. Then I proceed and I discuss it with someone because we're all human. Talking about it helps. It's like a basic wash, rinse, and repeat. Step 2 and step 3 in prayer, step 4 in being awake, in step 5 discussing it with someone else, and then make an amend if appropriate. A repeat of 6, 7, 8, and 9 if you have created a harm. On occasion, when I am disturbed, I will share my disturbed feelings with you because misery loves company. If I am disturbed, I am contagious. So I find someone I can help. It changes my focus and speeds up the process of my feeling free again. And I don't want to contaminate anybody else with my poor behaviors. And resentment, it's basically anger that has been held onto for way too long. Forgiveness is anger that is released. Trust is in the big book, in the fear inventory section, as the antidote to fear. Honesty is the obvious antidote to dishonesty. And Bill spends a lot of time on page 58 introducing us to how it works by discussing rigorous honesty. Selfishness is all about me. Love is all about thee. When I am focused on myself, I am the center of the universe. I can't see anyone but myself. And altruism, which is doing something for someone else with no benefit to myself, this is the definition of other-centered. So these are the monks, and like I said, they started in Texas, and they spend their whole life trying to generate peace in the world. I mean, they're just incredible. I mean, look at their feet. Half of them don't even have shoes on. And they're actually right now walking. They're walking in the snow and everything. Nothing stops them. They're incredible. So anyways, so on page 84, Bill ends step 9 by saying, "We have now entered the world of the spirit," which brings us to step 10. We continue to take personal inventory. We ask ourselves or someone close to us, "How am I doing?" Ask yourself, asking your closest person, "How do you see me? How do you see my behaviors?" is the best way to find out how you're doing, because somebody that lives with you or is really close to you is probably going to tell you how you're doing. And sometimes we don't know how we're doing. We just assume we're not doing that well. So we have entered the world of the spirit. Our next function is to improve and have growth in understanding and effectiveness. To grow in understanding, a function of our mind. To grow in effectiveness is the function of our will, that we in fact become people of wisdom and people of compassion and peace. In Buddhism, wisdom and compassion are two indispensable, interdependent pillars, often described as the two wings of a bird, required to achieve enlightenment. Wisdom involves seeing reality clearly, recognizing the emptiness of self, and understanding impermanence. Compassion is the active, empathetic response to the suffering of all beings born from that deeper understanding. On page 84, love and tolerance of others is our code, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol, for by this time sanity will have arrived. So we know by now from our step 1 exploration of obsession and our step 2 exploration of willpower, we know what sanity means. On page 37, Bill tells us about the inability to stop jaywalking and how insane this is. Bill W. also defines alcoholic insanity not as a clinical mental illness, but as the insane inability to recognize the truth about alcohol's destruction, leading to the repeated irrational choice to drink, despite knowing the consequences. It is characterized by a lack of proportion and the repetitive, illogical action of experiencing different results. Our addictive minds do not work in a healthy way. It has a defective vulnerability to the obsessions. And in step 2, when Bill says, restored to sanity, Bill defines it as breaking free from the obsessive, irrational thinking that drives active addiction. This signifies returning to a state of clear, rational thought where the mental obsession to drink or use drugs is removed, thereby allowing the individual to live in a reality rather than a fantasy world. On page 24, Bill writes, he has commenced to accomplish those things for which we could never do by ourselves. We have not even sworn off our issues. Instead, the problem has been removed by soul surgery. Remember the bedevilments? They will be removed from our soul spiritually. This will remain as long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. It is easy to light up on a spiritual program of action. Dr. Tebow told us the ego has an uncanny way of regenerating itself and rest on our past successes. Although we can't rest on yesterday's meditation or inventory, we are headed for misery if we do, because addiction is a subtle flow. We are not cured of our addiction, which is code word for our unmanageability. We have our daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So I strive to be in the flow, but how do I know what my higher power's will for me is? Bill W. suggested that staying in the flow of recovery involves surrendering control, practicing daily principles without making it a project, and cultivating emotional sobriety. He emphasized living in the present, reducing ego driven demands, and engaging in ongoing love and service to others to maintain spiritual momentum. Bill tells us that the proper use of the mind is meditation, to think about what God's will for me today is. The proper use of the will is, thy will be done, not mine. I use my free will to choose to hand it over to my Creator. I can't rely on my own power. On page 85, Bill ends step 10 with, much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. But we must go further, and that means more action. This is the development of a spiritual intuition, or the ability to sense the flow of a higher power's will into our lives, rather than relying solely on self-will. Bill emphasizes that merely recognizing the need for change or feeling inspired is insufficient. The mental state must be followed by spiritual growth and structural character changes. This specifically refers to the action-oriented steps, which are steps 4 through 12. Multiple inventories, sharing defects with another person, and making amends where needed. Our recovery is not just abstaining from addictions, but requires a substantial change in our personality. Basically, the sixth sense is our guidance, but the action is the implementing of that guidance to achieve a total spiritual and behavioral transformation. And that concludes my presentation. So if anyone has questions or comments, ideas, experience, strength, hope, anything at all, you can raise your hand.
My first thought is When do we start again?
April.
It's
Now, before you go any further, when you first came in, you probably were thinking, when is this going to be over? Right? When am I going to get to the 12th step and I'm done? And I'm so happy that you're asking me, when do we start again? That's a spiritual experience, Joel. You just had it. You can go ahead now.
well, it's just so much. It's just so much. You can't have I missed more than I got. And you
You
can't,
got it all. You got it all. It's in your brain.
well,
You just have to tap on it now. So when you go around this again the second time, you're going to remember so much that you thought you forgot because it's in
yeah.
there.
Yeah, but there was just so much going on in like my life and things that were happening that I didn't get to do all my resentments and I didn't get to capture it all and I want to go back and I want to just like try and just get all the things that I missed and fill in the gaps and just but not only do that but really try to like really absorb it,
Hmm.
and enjoy it, especially the part about spirituality, which I didn't have. I had none of it. And I got to say that I have a little bit of it now. And part of it is
Yep.
directly due to you, and I really thank you. And you know,
I'm just a vessel, but thank you. You did the work though. You had the willingness, which is what I said to you. If you just have the willingness, and sometimes even just the willingness to be willing, and you were ready. You were in enough pain that you were willing to look at it and say, okay, I'll give it a shot, right?
yeah, yeah.
You
That
had nothing to lose.
I had nothing to lose.
Yeah. It's a great place to be when you have nothing to lose because you have everything to gain. And you're gaining a lot. And you're gaining it fast. This is your first 6 months in the program. That's amazing. Most people don't jump into a workshop the first 6 months in the program.
No, but some people have the luxury of having entered the program a lot younger than me. And
But that doesn't mean they've gotten it yet.
no,
Yeah.
no, but I feel like I feel like I have a lot of ground to pick up, Um, like I'm in a little bit of a rush. I feel for health reasons and for other reasons I want to try and maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. Maybe, rushing into it, you sort of maybe take things quicker than you maybe you don't do it healthy. But I'm trying to do it as healthy as I can, and not make assumptions that I shouldn't be making and that kind of thing. But
Right.
um, you know, I'm trying.
You are trying, and that's important. You're showing up, you're writing up stuff, you're following
Well,
along.
that's part of it too. I haven't
It's a
been doing
huge
as
part
much.
of it.
Yeah, no,
You
no,
know,
I haven't been doing as much writing and as much paying close attention as I should with trying to sell my house and the health things, the heart surgery and all that stuff. I haven't been just doing the real in-depth sort of stuff that I should be doing. I've been sort of giving a lot of it like a perfunctory sort of thing. But hopefully, as I maybe sort of improve, I'll be able to pay more attention to it. Right now, like I'm sort of, still fearing, health things and not getting well as quickly as I'd like and that kind of stuff. And, you know,
mhm,
so
which is a great motivator.
that's right.
You know,
It,
you've got this great motivation for whatever reason. And if you look around, most of us in this rooms are around the same age, I would say. And we know that feeling of, okay, I'm running out of time. I'm getting to an age where maybe I didn't get to do some of the things I did. And maybe that's partly because I had this addiction crap going on that got in my way. And now it's going to get out of my way and I'm going to live my life finally. the way I want to. And some of that, Joel, is a coming of age that happens even in the program. The young people that come into the program, they're not looking at the stuff that we're looking at. They don't have the experiences we have. So, they come in with a different perspective and they
Yeah.
tend to go in and out of the program. And then I know people that have been in the program for 40 years who have never done the 12 steps. They're not even doing them. They don't even
Right,
know.
but a lot of them have even. I know some people who were like that too, but they haven't deaded, so they've gained the benefits of it. Even though they've
Right.
haven't consciously done it.
Right.
Which is good thing too.
Yeah. But it's that question. How free do you want to be? Because you can sit in a meeting and hear a lot of stuff and you're going to get some freedom out of that. Absolutely. At least from experiencing, the same thing that people in the room are and getting their support and all that. But I know for me, that's not enough. I'm an overachiever and I want the big kahuna. I want the gold medal, not the bronze. And that's what it's about. How free do you want to be? How much do you want to put in? And that's going to directly determine how much you get out of it. And like I said, you went to the front of the class and said, "Well, I'm going to take the more difficult course. I'm going to walk the harder path." And that's okay because you're going to get those hard lessons. They come fast and furious and they stick around.
Well, part of it is, part of it for lack. Well, part of that is it's a slippery slope because when you come from the background of being a lawyer, you sort of you walk that line because you're overthinking things all the time, and
Very analytical. Yeah. Hmm.
you're constantly uh, looking at it in a very analytical sort of way, and that's your bend, your education, and it sort of dogs you,
It does.
you can't get
It
away
does.
from that, and it's
Yeah.
you sort of, you'd rather be an idiot sometimes than be you'd be what you are,
Well,
It-
yeah, it's a great thing to have in a courtroom, but when
yeah,
it comes to doing
yeah,
some
but
soul searching, it's
right,
not maybe the best.
I'd rather be a sycophant than a I'd rather not rule in hell than.
Yeah. And that's a prayer you can offer to whatever you've discovered as your higher power.
Yeah,
Help me bring myself to a level where I'm more emotional than I am analytical. Because
yeah,
it's a habit that you learned, and
yeah.
it's a
No, I
good
know.
habit. It
Yeah.
got you all the way it got you. But you might
It got me some money, but
ex
it's
exactly.
not giving me anything right now. It's sort of a curse right now. But the other thing is maybe it's not because I'm talking to you and everybody else in this room right now about finding some type of spirituality. So
Yeah.
maybe I am breaking down a little bit, at certain times and certain quiet moments and early in the morning and in two-way prayer and in listening to you and in talking sometimes about it, I do feel a little bit of that little lump in the throat, that tells me that I'm something's happening. But
Mhm.
at other times that hard, cold, objective craziness comes back and takes over. So, and that's ego driven, and that well,
Yeah, there's probably like some vicarious thrill there that you had this ability to be so analytical and make money doing it and win cases and have that whole ego shining thing happen to you.
not anymore, not
Not
anymore.
anymore. But now that you've evolved into a different person, you're going to take on a new character. You have that ability. You have that sitting right at your feet. In any moment, we can choose to be somebody different. We can do things differently because our feet are always going to tell us who we are. Meaning, If you're walking around doing certain behaviors, that tells you who you are, whether they're good or bad. Those behaviors are going to define you, and you get to decide with
Yeah,
your higher power, what behaviors do I want to get up with today? You might have to take it in little increments because you're fighting a really big ego over there.
yeah. Well, anyway, I don't want to take up everybody's time. So, but that's enough of it, you know.
I, I appreciate you speaking up, Joel. I do. Go ahead, Rochelle.
I the one thing you said earlier that I hadn't thought about before, but what happened today was you said pray, discuss, make amends, and help someone else. And one thing I think for me that's become really important is this idea of discussing. I get a lot out of what you say, but I get a lot out of listening to everybody else during this part. And I go, oh my gosh, you know,
Yeah.
I could apply this. And I'll just give you an example. I decided to have all my medical tests over a 2 week period because I'm going out of town. And in retrospect, this wasn't the smartest thing in the world to do at my age. But anyway, I did it. And one of my blood tests came back and it said abnormal. And another not smart thing is that when it shows up, I go right to the portal, which you're not supposed to do, and look at my results. And then I start Googling it, which you're not supposed to. You're supposed to, and the doctor will tell you, don't look at any of this until I explain it to you. And, that it's impossible for me to do that, to sit there and know that it's sitting there and not look. And so this one thing said abnormal, and I Googled it and I thought, oh my God, I've got chronic kidney disease. I diagnosed myself, whatever. And so I sent a note to the doctor and I said, could you, respond because I'm going out of town. And, of course, I don't even know if it was a human, but it might have been a bot. And the system said, well, give the doctor 5 days to respond to you. And so then I had a resentment to the system, had a resentment at the doctor. She probably didn't even know it's there. And I thought, so one of my character defects is let me show you how we should run this system. And, I went on and on. And then this afternoon, really, God worked in my life. A friend from the program called me and she was talking about her issues and I was talking about mine. I told her about this. She said, oh, I have chronic kidney disease. And I went, well, are you on dialysis? And she goes, no. And I said, is it going to be fatal? And she goes, no. And and I thought, whoa, and if I hadn't been willing to kind of open up and be honest, because I think a number of years ago I would have felt stupid. So I didn't do that because I
Right.
had this persona. I was supposed to be an intelligent professional woman. Now I don't give a blank about that. And so by the time I got off the phone, I thought, wow, I don't need to. And then I thought I was going to write to the doctor again. And I thought, I don't need to do that. I can just go on with my life and not waste another day in fear. Because that's what I've been doing a lot over my life is I do the right thing. I get these medical tests like they tell you to do. The results come back and then I'm petrified. So then I've wasted all this time
Right.
worrying and you don't get that time back. And I'm 78 years old. I ain't getting that time back. So the fact that I could discuss this with someone, and I really kind of had to make amends to myself for, saying, yeah, it
Yeah.
made sense that you wasted this time, but what'd you learn from this? What you learned? I'm not going to not look at the portal and look at my medical results. That's not who I am. I'm not going to do
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
But maybe Dr. Googling it isn't a really great idea or calling somebody. But the point is, I guess I don't want to go on and on, but the whole point, and I never heard anybody say this before, about discussing with someone. Call somebody in program and just say, this is where my head is. And maybe that's not really real. My head is in like, I'm already buying, ordering a casket. So, you know,
Exactly.
and it's so my children, my son won't have to do it, because my codependency is layered on top of everything. I don't want to bother him by making him have to get a casket when I die. So, you know, It's just amazing, no matter, and I've been in this program forever. Every time I come, I hear something from you, Lisa, or from one of you guys, and I go, oh my God, I never heard that before.
Yeah.
Because my head was clogged and I wasn't listening. So I just want to thank you for saying that one thing. Discuss.
Thank you, Rochelle. And you know what? I will reiterate what you said. This group has a very cohesive energy to it. I've been in a lot of groups. I've been in groups where it's a struggle to even just sit through the whole thing. But this group, the energy's it really flows really well.
Right.
And everyone is making such great strides. It's incredible. So sometimes in life you come across a group where it just works great
Right.
and you run with it. You got to really run with it because it doesn't happen very often. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Hi, thanks. I actually like something kind of came up from listening, and then I had a part that was just personal. So first off, like something kind of came up from the first share, and what came up for me is sometimes, and I have the issues that I heard. So. Um, Sometimes when I see people and they didn't have to do the program, and they sort of like got what I've gotten by working the steps, and I heard this in my other step study that I go to, that I don't know if they necessarily have either the addiction I have or they didn't go as far to the dump as I did, but it doesn't really matter because like I can't get away with doing that. And because I've seen that kind of stuff in all my different programs where there are people, they don't have to do anything and they get whatever. But I don't, in my experience, they didn't have the story I had. So it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Whatever, like the, the lady who leads my other step study that I go to, um, she oftentimes says like like if you're just going to the groups and you have like a light case of this addiction, then it's cool. And then I hope that you're just using it kind of like as a self-help thing, and that's cool. But a lot of us don't have that, and so I'm saying that because like for me, like when I first came to every single program, I would see other people do other things, and sometimes they would even be people I sponsored, and that just wasn't my experience, and I had to learn to let that go, and just like if I was in or I was out, and I'm really mostly talking about with not talking with my first addiction, but some of my other ones, I just had to kind of like look at patient progress. So that's something that came up. Another thing that came up just specifically on the shared to that I identify with it, and I was talking to actually someone I was working with, and it's something that is originally from Emmett Fox, who was one of the writers that the people who framed the big book used to read all the time. But this whole concept of like fake it till you make it comes from his writing. And I'm not going to quote it because it gets a little bit religious. But the main point is like I take the action and I get the results. Not really that I think about it, because if I think about it, I'm not going to do it. And now I'm going to kind of like weave that into like what's going on with me. So so recently, like I got let go of my pretty much toxic position that I've been working for a while, and so my personal feelings about it have been a little bit mixed, but it's been interesting. I do two-way prayer, and God's just been telling me the last 4 days that this is what I wanted for you, that in fact that I should have quit like even earlier. And I didn't really see as much God until like today. And I saw a lot of God today in that, I had these like real big God shots. Like I had a friend of mine went ahead and sent me some money. Then I had another friend sent me some money, which is totally in line with the program I'm working on. And then when I was talking to the person that I'm working with, like I realized that some of the behavior that they were dealing with because of all the work that I've been doing, I wouldn't even contemplate of doing. And it was sort of like some basic kind of like stuff that kind of happens when you're in a bottom. But I had changed not just, part of it with you guys, but even with some other work that I've done that basically, even though part of me, yeah, I could sit in bed and kind of just like be full of self-pity and watch Netflix all day, but that's just not necessarily helping me with my 6 and 7. So I just kind of take the action and let go of the results. I don't like think about all of these different things, which I can do because my God is not found in my thinking about my problems. So that's what I wanted to share. Yeah.
I like that last comment. Um, a lot of people ask me about when you do the 12-step workshops because there's no fellowship affiliation basically, and people get concerned about that. And when they do ask me about it, I tell them, recovery is about the 12 steps. It's not about the addiction. So if you're following a particular fellowship and you're feeling like you're not getting somewhere, and I've actually had people say their sponsors tell them don't do workshops, but the 12 steps are where the solution is. The meetings are fantastically important for support. Not that the workshops aren't, because clearly they are, because this group is thriving immensely. But some people will say, I don't have time. I need to add a fifth fellowship to my life, and there's not enough days in the week. And I try to explain to them, it's not about the fellowship. It's about the recovery through the 12 steps. That's the key to all of this. To go into the 12 steps, be willing to have something beyond yourself so that you have the courage and that you're comfortable enough to peel your own layers off. And we don't always necessarily have that experience in some of what I would call the talk meetings, where we go in and we experience strength and hope come up. And like I said, they're fantastic for support, and they're fantastic for getting people into your life who have this similar issues and they're studying the program. But at the end of the day, the 12 steps is going to bring you home. So don't feel that pull of, oh, I'm not going to enough different fellowships, because most people, and I think it's somewhere in the 90 percentile, have more than one addiction. We're addictive personalities, and we can get hooked on anything that we can expand, meaning more of whatever it is that we think we need. So, what our particular addiction is just the way that our unmanageability is playing out in our lives. It's our cry for help. When we behave those ways, we're looking for help. Most people won't realize that, but that's what that's really about. We act out because we need help. That's what we did as children. We acted out. Our parents would give us the attention we needed. And that's what we're doing in life. We're addictive personalities, racking up all these different fellowships we can go to. I think I can't remember, there's over 100 now. It used to be one, it was AA. And now there's so many that when people tell me their initials of the group they're in, I don't even know what they're doing or what kind of group they're in. And it's not about the groups. It's about the 12 steps. So if push comes to shove and you need to do one thing that's really important to recovery, it's the 12 steps. If you get it in a talk meeting or a supportive meeting, 100% show up and do that. But don't stress over not getting to enough of the particular fellowship meetings, because it's all going to be the same end result. We need the spiritual awakening that the 12 steps is going to bring to us. And some people find that in sitting in the middle of the desert and watching the animals pass by. They can have a spiritual experience. So whatever gets you there, go there and run with it. Would anyone else like to address anything that came up or say anything or have any concerns? Go ahead, Sarah. Hold on, there you
There,
go.
now, okay. I just want to say that kind of a response to the first share. I also am a senior citizen. I'm probably the oldest one in the group. And I came into the 12 steps when I was in my 70s. That was 20 years ago. Um, and and it's all so much I was just overwhelmed in the beginning. I was overwhelmed. My first fourth step, I actually got kind of sick. It was like I opened up a door and I could see all this stuff in there, and I could just pull out only a little bit. And I pulled out a little bit, and I had um, a very good fifth step with a social worker, and I knew I needed to do it again. And I find that over the years, I have to keep doing it because life keeps happening, and it's. I also have to kind of I get into this. I wish I had done this. I should have done this with my children. And I wish I had known what I know now back when I was younger, and I would have been a different parent, a better. My kids have turned out fine, but I could have done things differently if I'd known what I know now. It's easy to kind of, beat myself up sort of. And I just think, no, I'm here today and I'm just focusing on, as Herb K says, focus on the reality of what is now. And to be honest with myself, I was in a lot of denial, and I really have opened up. And the quiet time with my higher power, it really is. I didn't have much of a spiritual base either. What I have learned through the 12 steps, as you say, and I have to keep doing them um, every year because life keeps happening. And I find that some of my character defects, I'm aware of them, but they're really deep, and I, life will happen, and there's this knee-jerk reaction. I find myself responding the same old way, but at least I'm aware of it, and I can say, wait a minute, I have another option. And I'm just grateful for that. So I really do believe, I just want to say that I don't have that much time left either, frankly, but I want to just achieve some peace and serenity and understanding. And that's why I keep learning and growing and changing, and just getting. It's a daily reprieve, and I have to do it every day. And I have slipped off the wagon. So I'm a food addict. Actually, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a food addict and a codependent also. So I do still have these issues, but I'm much more aware of them, and at least I'm learning how to manage them. They're never going away, but I have to take the steps to manage them on a daily basis and to just be honest with myself about what's really going on, and not try to keep saying I'm fine or it'll get better or whatever. No, there are ways I have to recognize what's going on and take steps to deal with it, and then I do have more peace and serenity. And I have the 12 steps are a whole process. In FA, we for years I never could maintain my abstinence, and I had to leave the 12 steps. And if you don't maintain your abstinence, you're kicked out. So I didn't. Finally, I went over to OA, and I was able to complete the 12 steps that way. And then I just found I need to do it every year. So I'm just grateful to you for doing this, and for this group and the shares. I haven't said that much, but I've been listening, and I certainly concur with what everyone has said. And I have similar issues and similar problems with my health, but my higher power is there to help me, and I know that I just have to believe and have faith and trust. I didn't have much of that either, and I have that more now. So it's all been a great learning experience. And I just, I don't want to compare and I don't want to say, I tend to say, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. I'm trying to erase the word should from my vocabulary. Um, so just, it's been a great learning experience and I'm still learning. And every day is really helpful. So I just want to say thank you for everything you've given us and for all the people here who have given such, been so very honest about their experiences. I do appreciate it. That's it. So,
We appreciate you too, Sarah. I'm glad you're here. You know, I had a person come to me, a woman, she was 85 years old, and she said, I'm a beginner. I don't know. Why would I start now? I'm 85 years old. And I said, how much time do you have left? Well, I don't know. I said, how many days do you want to spend in joy?
mhm,
She said, well, I don't have joy. And I said, well, then that's the point. If I have one day left on this planet, I would prefer to spend it in joy than in any other emotion I have experienced on this planet. So there is no age to come or not come and do this work. It's for anybody that just wants to stop feeling the way that they feel and experience this gift of life that, this isn't a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is our lives. And it's always a choice. Do I want to spend the last week of my life feeling joyful and close to my higher power? Well, heck yeah, that's probably the most important time to be there.
mhm,
So I never say to people, oh, you're too old to start. You're never too old, never too old. And if you feel like, because we probably all have children, or at least most of us do, and we say the same things you say. Oh God, I wish I had given them more of the program so they would have more joy in their lives. But everyone has to find their own way. Our children come into this world with their own agenda. Even though we want to give them our agenda, or we want to give them even the positive stuff that we've learned, it wouldn't apply to them. So I don't
mhm,
beat myself up for not giving my children maybe some lessons that I wasn't able to give them. But the thing that I did give my children, and I will continue to give my children, is unconditional love and support. And that's what's really important, that they know that they're loved and they're supported, whether it's through our 12 steps or not. One of my children had a really horrifying go with heroin and was in the program of her own. Didn't come to me. I mean, I knew she was having the issue, but she got in the program on her own and she's been clean now for 12 years. So, you know, I didn't have a hand in that really. I probably had a hand in why she turned to heroin, but I gave her enough that she was able to find this program on her own. And I think that's pretty impressive that can happen. It can happen by osmosis. We don't even have to hand it to anybody. We just live this life and people come up and say, I want what you have. And sometimes it's our children. And then we can give them the gift because they've opened that door. But believe me, until we get that consent from our children that they want our help, it's just not going to happen. I don't know about your kids, but my kids are pretty defiant. So, I'm sure you did a fantastic job. You did the best you had with what you had. And I love this statement. I didn't know what I didn't know.
mhm.
And that's a huge amen because that sums it up. I didn't know. Joel, you didn't know. Like you didn't know. Sarah, you didn't know. Because I'm 100% sure if you did, you would have done it differently. I'm 100% sure of that. So we can't be blamed for not having the knowledge any more than we can be blamed for not knowing how to speak Russian. We have to be taught. So
True.
try not to beat yourself up for what you didn't know. There's no way to change that situation.
Sarah,
Go
that was,
ahead, Carol. Right, Joel?
well, no, I just wanted to say, Sarah, that was a lovely share.
Mm-hmm.
It put things in proper perspective for me, at least.
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
I was writing down a couple of things as you were saying it. I wish I caught everything, every word, because they were all good. They were all golden nuggets. So
You can
thank you.
watch the video, Joel.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yes, you can.
Oh boy, you hit me. You hit me over the head with it.
I know. I caught you on that one.
You caught me on that one.
Go ahead,
There's a
Carol.
lot of videos I gotta watch.
Yeah, there are. Me too. Go ahead, Carol.
I just wanted to say that I really agree with you when you were talking about the meetings and how they're very important for fellowship. But the real key is working the 12 steps. I'm an FA and I don't think I could stay abstinent if I wasn't working the 12 steps. And I just wanted to thank you and to thank everybody here in the group. I've learned a lot too just from listening to you and being part of this. So it's one day at a time. Every day it's working at this process every single day and understanding that I'll never get it perfect. I just never will because, I can't. I'm human. But, I try. And the effort is what really, really counts. And the consequences are up to my higher power.
Exactly. In my opinion, there's only one perfect thing on the planet, one solitary thing,
Okay.
and that's a newborn baby.
Wow.
I've seen the perfection.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
And a really good piece of pizza.
Really? Well, you're in New York. You can say that. Go ahead, Dee Dee.
Thanks. Is this our last meeting? And I
No,
oh
Sounds like
oh
it, doesn't it?
oh good. Okay. Hey,
we're
can
just
you?
very sentimental.
Oh, I love you guys, and I miss lots of my family members, and only one of my family members is in program, so I really appreciate this family. So, can you revisit this idea about the recovery gets into our subconscious, not just our conscious, and something about sleep. I kind of missed the um that was really important information. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're referring to that we walk around like we're asleep.
Our ego, something about our
Yes.
ego. Yeah.
So that connotation of we walk around asleep means we're unaware, we're unconscious, we don't see what we don't see, we don't realize the impact of our actions, we don't understand our behaviors and how they affect everything in our presence. So what happens is with a spiritual awakening is when you connect with your higher self, you're able to shed that ego, and that ego is what gets us into trouble. And once we're enlightened, the light comes on and we're awake. We're awake to our true persona, which is we come from love, which is the higher power always extends love. So we come from love. That's where we reside. But we're so asleep from all the crap that we've piled on top of that we carry around, that we can't see our true selves, which is love. We come from love. We'll go to love when this is over. It's what we are. Everything else is just not real. It's a dream. It's fake. We've created a walking dream state. It's that Disneyland, that Lisa land that I lived in. I could walk around and pretend that everything was the way that it was because I was unconscious about my surroundings, because I was living in my head. And when I heal and I come out of that place in my head, because my head is my body, I become my spirit. And I let go of a lot of that physical stuff that gets me into trouble, like addiction. Addiction is the brain, it's not the spirit. It's the brain and the will, it's the body. That's where the trouble starts. So when we can shed that ego, that very negative ego, and I don't mean ego like the id, like Freud and all that. I mean that ego that thinks the world revolves around them. We do that. There's a teacher way back, probably in the 70s or 80s. It was Bradshaw was his name, and he came out with a lot of information on alcoholism and the effect that it has on the family. And he said, in a family where there's an active addiction going on, the family members run circles around that person in the center. That person in the center, that addict, is the whole universe. And they enable that. That's why we become codependent and we need Al-Anon and all those other programs. So when we stop thinking or believing or acting like we are the center of the universe, not just our own, but the entire universe, the ego starts to die off and then the spirit becomes stronger because it's that fight, that two wolves, the black wolf and the white wolf. It's always going to be a battle. Angels and devils. There's so many different contrasts that you can use as an example. And at the end of the day, it's always choice. Am I going to choose the white wolf or am I going to choose the black wolf? Am I going to choose recovery or am I going to choose addiction? Because we could go to our grave, like Sarah said, with a full-blown addiction and have had no healing, recovery, or spiritual enlightenment. And that would be such a horrible way to go. So if you find the 12 steps the day before you die and you have a spiritual experience or an enlightenment, it's going to be a lot better when you pass on because you're going to pass in peace. So, yeah, exactly. I mean, people can choose either way. But if you're not choosing the positive root of the higher power and what that all stands for, well, guess what? It's kind of a black and white situation. There is no kind of God. There is no mediocre God. That wouldn't make any sense, and it wouldn't be able to do anything that goes on. So it does have to be a black and white issue. You're either going to choose to be miserable because you think you run the universe and you don't, and you're going to let all that go and let the universe run itself because it clearly can for how many millions or billions of years. So waking up means we wake up and realize we are not the end all and be all on this planet. Not even in our own minds. I mean, we'd like to think that, but we're really not that important in the big picture. So waking ourselves up is what we do when we do 10, 11, and 12 every day. That gives us a little shake every day to be awake and to look at, okay, what were my behaviors today? When I go to bed at night, I look at my day. What did I do? Do I owe anyone an amends? Did I connect with my higher power or did I act like I could run the ship? And then that keeps you going every day. So we're never going to graduate from needing that 10, 11, and 12. We will most likely at some point get to a place where we can live in 10, 11, and 12 because we've done the work. We've done a lot of work. And those three steps fill in with other steps aren't needed anymore. If you've found your higher power, 1, 2, and 3 are pretty much, they've been done. If you need reminders, they're a great place to visit. But at some point in recovery, and it's different timing for everybody, you get to a place where it's 10, 11, and 12. It's not that hard. I screw up, I apologize. I try to live in a godly way or a loving way, whatever your higher power is. And I try to extend love to people on the outside of my existence. It's pretty simple. I mean, if you want to really boil it down to one little statement, it's 10, 11, and 12.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that explained it.
It's beautiful. I love being here. Thank you.
Thanks, Dee Dee. No, this is not the last class. I am going to run the class again. Sue, I'll get to you in 1 second. I'm going to do it on Thursdays, and I've just got to figure out the actual start date, but it will be in April because I'm trying to go away to see my daughter in England. So I'm looking at April, but I'll get that together this week and get it out to
Oh,
everybody.
so we are going to be on hiatus then for a while.
We're going to be, I think we're going to finish up around the third week of March. And then
Oh,
I'm
okay.
going to,
So we're going to meet again next Tuesday and the following two
yeah,
Tuesdays.
we're going to finish. I'm not going to lie, the next few lessons aren't very exciting. It's about your employer and that stuff, but we'll make it interesting.
Okay.
We'll find a way. But so I just got to pick a date when I can start where I know I'm back, I'm ready to go, and it will be sometime in April.
But it'll be good for people like me who played hooky a little bit up here.
Yeah, sometimes you need a little bit of time to absorb everything that you've heard and process it, which
You're
is fine.
being kind.
No, I'm serious. I'm serious. Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, what I want to take away or what I'm hearing for myself today, because I've been sober for 29 years, but you know, I was on somewhat of a spiritual path before and in that process, I realized I had a problem with alcohol and to start dealing with it. And I've been in and out of AA programs, mostly in, but again, really, it was only over the last, well, I started with herbs, what, 2 years, it'll be 2 years in June coming up. But I mean, I never went to the depths of the big book in all of my sobriety, but I'd done a lot of other
Mhm.
work along the way. But here's what I was listening to everybody, and thank you, is that, I mean, we're um, not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And it's that unmanageability and all the rest of around that and the ego aspect of ourselves. But what I'm taking away from myself, because that was one of the one focus was for me to go deeper into my understanding or experiencing of my higher power. And I'm just present right now to um, I am a spiritual being. And as you were sharing, and of course, Lisa, you and I have talked, I've done a lot of Course in Miracles work as well. And anything other than that isn't freaking true. I just make the story up about it all. And
Yes,
uh,
absolutely.
and
Yeah,
that's all the 4-step work, how much story I've made up. But I carried the burden of the story.
exactly. That's the worst part. We
Yeah,
do carry that burden. We make the story and then we carry it on our back everywhere we go.
yeah, and that what the story will still come up with certain things. It doesn't go away, although
Right.
the good news is that I can remember in those moments, that I'm more awake to it now. I'm grateful for the 10th step because I learned early on. I could feel it because I have this thing, I don't want to hurt anybody. It's just in that perfectionism and all that I have had to deal with. But I know when I'm disturbed, and if I've said or done something that it doesn't feel right, that 10th step for me is so important to get that handled immediately
Yep.
and clean it up. Yes, there's steps to take, prayers, make amends, etc. But that's what keeps me as much as possible in my peace and joy. But I want to take away that and what the power of sharing, and I've shared in a lot of different groups, is that for us to walk away to remember tonight that this sharing and this desire and willingness to go deeper into who we are as a spiritual being, and I get emotional about it. We are together making an impact on this planet, and
That's
to
right.
really take it at a deep soul level.
That's right.
That, and I thank all of you for being here. I'm not always on if I'm on because there's been a lot of other things going on in my life, but I love being in these groups because and that's where I want to leave it for myself tonight. It's this is how we make a difference together. And by
Exactly.
the way, the book still is around, the daily reflections. I have it. I read from
That's
it.
fantastic.
Yeah. And yeah, it was on, I forget, October 9th or something, which you read from. So
It's great.
yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, I've got
anyways,
a few
thank you. Thank you.
oldies but goodies,
Yeah.
There's nothing new out there. It's just how we are going to approach it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the universe is expanding. Our minds are expanding. Our lives are expanding. So again, I would say, what direction do you want your expansion to go in? You want to expand in a positive direction? Then you're going to get out of the ego's mind and go into your higher power's mind. So when I get up in the morning, if I'm not feeling joy or peace, I know I'm disturbed. Because if I'm not feeling joy or peace, I'm feeling something else. And then I try to either address that, or sometimes I don't even address it. I just switch my mind over and say, I'm going to be in joy and peace.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty simple equation. You don't have to get up and say, I wonder where I'm at. It's not even that difficult. Are you in joy? Do you feel peaceful? You don't? Then you're disturbed. Do a 10, 11, and 12, and you're going to feel better. And
Just one more. Sorry, go
you
ahead.
might get to the middle of the day and go, wow, I feel disturbed again. I'm going to do it again. And we clean it up. We clean up our side of the street. We peel our onion because we want to get to the center of that onion, which we're never going to get there, which is the good news. But we keep peeling it because the journey is as important as the destination. Everything we've done up until this very minute has been completely important and exactly what it was supposed to be.
Just one more frame of reference that that for me life is a journey of the soul in the relation to our spiritual being a spiritual being. And yeah, we have this human condition that helps us along the way to remember who we are. And it's when this is the latest for me is we're not a body with a soul, we're a soul with a body. And that really goes deep for me. And that's the power of this work. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone.
So, all right. So if we don't have any more questions or comments, we can do the Serenity Prayer. You can always text me or email me if you have a question. You get, out tomorrow and you're like, oh, I wish I had asked. Just shoot me a text or an email, either way. So if you want to unmute, you can. If not, that's fine too. But I'm going to do the Serenity Prayer. God,
God,
please grant me
me the
the serenity
to
to accept the
accept
things
things
I cannot
I
change,
cannot change,
the
the
courage
courage to
to change
change
things
the
I
things I can,
And the
and the
wisdom.
wisdom
and the wisdom to
to know
know
the
the
difference.
difference.
I will not.
Awesome work.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
meeting.
Thank
See
you.
you next week.
Goodbye,
Bye-bye.
everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
You
Yeah.
too.
Thank
Great.
you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye now.
Keep up the good work, everyone. You're doing great.